Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. Out with the following instructions. Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, no bag for the journey, or 2 tunics or sandals or a staff, for laborers deserve their food. Whatever town or village you enter, find out who in it is worthy and stay there until you leave. As you enter the house, greet it. If the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet as you leave that house or town. Truly I tell you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. See, I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of them, for they will hand you over to councils and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings because of me, as a testimony to them and the Gentiles. When they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you at that time. For it is not a brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise against parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by all because of my name. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. For truly I tell you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. And this is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. So I'm pretty much a what you see is what you get kind of girl. Perhaps that's because I grew up in a blue-collar, lower-middle-class world. I value transparency. For me, it's a measure of your honesty and integrity. And yet, I can see the value of adopting a persona now and then. I know I have to break out of my comfort zone, and yes, that involves doing what I'm up here doing right now. Sometimes you have to push yourself to do what doesn't come naturally, right? Well, I think Jesus understood that perfectly. When he chose to send out his disciples, he knew that not all of them were natural leaders, speakers, or evangelists. Rather, they were fishermen, tax collectors, political activists, and who knows what else. I think he chose who he chose not so much based on their particular skill sets, but more on what was right here in their hearts. So he chooses them like he chooses us, and that in this world, we are to be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. And you know, in another part of Matthew's gospel, he says that we are to beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. In other words, beware of religious people or shepherds who care more about the rules than they do about the people or sheep that they are supposed to be caring for. Hence, wolves in sheep's clothing. which, as I said, bothers me because I value transparency and authenticity. But then there are some other things that he said in this passage that strike me. Like when he says the people are harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. There is a world of people in need out there, he tells his disciples. People who are hurting. Maybe they've been burned, ostracized by those religious authorities that he warned about. Maybe they've heard one too many promises that failed to come true. Maybe they followed those rules but still felt empty and hopeless. Maybe they were no different from people in our world today. Maybe people in our world today hurt just as much. Maybe people in our world today are tired of what they see as hypocrisy in their leaders, be they political or spiritual. Maybe people in our world today are hungry for hope and meaning, but don't even know it because they've never known anything else. Or maybe they feel like they don't need the church or religion because they filled enough with the demands of family, work, friends, kids' activities, and everything else. Maybe they are so busy with all of that, dealing with the daily hassles, that they don't even realize that they are harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Oh, they get along all right, most of the time. But still, those daily arguments with the spouse make them wonder if perhaps there could be a better way. Their kid gets bullied and they struggle between protect them while encouraging them to stand up for themselves. They work long, long hours, shuffle home, and want to collapse on the couch. But then there are those other demands, dinner, kids who need help with homework, making time for their spouse. And then there are those folks who are in their later years, who watch their kids and grandkids make poor life choices, but they don't know how to help. Like I said, our world is really no different than Jesus' world was. People are still harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And yet we do actually have a shepherd, don't we? His name, of course, is Jesus. And he has chosen all of us to shepherd his flock, to care for the harassed and helpless people who need his shepherding love and guidance. You know he's talking to you, don't you? The appointment of disciples to care for the flock did not end with those first 12. You know that, don't you? All of us who try to follow him have been given the same commission. Does it seem daunting to you? I'll be honest, it does to me, and I'm the one paid to do this stuff. It seems daunting for many reasons, I think. For one, we get tongue-tied. Or we don't want to seem pushy or intrusive. That's that Lutheran niceness. Or we're afraid of pushback. Or we don't know what to say. What if we get it wrong? And then there's that other matter about us all being harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. But that's where we return to the place that I started. The idea of us putting on a persona. Or to borrow from Jesus' own words, but with a twist. What if he is calling us to be sheep in wolves' clothing? You heard it right, and I didn't get the idiom wrong. I know how Jesus put it in that earlier passage, which often gets translated as being wolves in sheep's clothing. Taking a cue from Jesus, though, I wonder what our world, our churches, and our very lives might look like if we became sheep in wolves' clothing. Now, hear me out. His marching orders for his disciples are that they are to not take anything with them as they begin their missionary journey. In other words, they're just to present themselves, nothing more, nothing less. Now, that should give us a little comfort, you know, because it says that we don't have to worry about how we will do. He's going to take care of us. And then he talks about how they are to handle people's responses to their gospel sharing. He says that some folks will embrace it. Those are the ones who are easy to talk to. Maybe that you're already friends welcome you for who you are. These people will be grateful for the peace that will come into their lives because of the way that your life pointed them to the shepherd. And that's when it's easy, okay? When the kids listen to you and come back to church, that's when it's easy. When the spouse thinks before uttering a harsh word to you, that's when it's easy. When just by being who you are, people see the light of Christ in you and want to be drawn to that light too. But Jesus knew that it wouldn't always be easy. He knew that sometimes you would have to be tough, strong, like a wolf. Oh, you'll always be his sheep, or as he put it here, as innocent as doves. But sometimes you just have to be stronger, wiser, more daring, perhaps even bolder, like a wolf. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet as you leave that house or town. Well, that's all well and good when you're on the road, evangelizing strangers. It's easy to shake the dust off your feet as you leave a town full of people you don't even know, who for whatever reason reject the gospel. But what about when your mission field is closer to home? Or what about when your mission field actually is your home? We can't just say, oh, well, too bad, so sad, and walk away from the people who are breaking our hearts, can we? When the harassed and helpless are the folks in our own families, friends, or colleagues, no, we can't just shake the dust off our feet and leave them to their own devices, can we? Be a sheep in wolves' clothing. Well, first, that requires us to admit our own sheepiness. Yes, I made that word up. Which in plain terms means simply that we admit that we are all the same deep down, that we all struggle and are harassed and helpless in need of a shepherd. Because people will see right through our attempts to hide our own neediness. And here's a secret if you haven't already figured it out. People respond better when they know that you struggle too. So go ahead. Join the flock of all the other harassed and helpless sheep out there. Be with them. Share their joys and sorrows. But, and this is key, do so with the self-differentiation and courage of the wolf. Now, Pastor, what is the self-differentiating thing you just said? It's a mouthful. Well, that's a fancy phrase for not letting yourself get swallowed up in the pain you encounter, which is hard, very hard to do when the pain you encounter is in the people you love the most. But that's when being the sheep in wolves' clothing is essential. Because as much as you want to sympathize with them and share your similar struggles, you also, if you're going to help them, have to point them to the true shepherd. With the courage and, shall we say, independence of the wolf, we can do that. We can do that because of what Jesus said a few sentences later, and I quote, "When they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say. For what you are to say will be given you at that time. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you," he says. That courage and self-differentiation I'm talking about, it isn't something that you can manufacture on your own. You know that as well as I do. But it is ours for the taking because it is given to us from above. Now realize, there is no guarantee that even when God does give you that wisdom, that the person that you're dealing with will be open to it. Brother will betray brother to death. and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and have them put to death, he says. Eek. Which, by the way, is not the best message to preach on Father's Day. But what he says is true. Just because we offer help, just because we rely on God to help us, doesn't mean that the people that we're trying to help will want our help. And we've all been there, haven't we? We've all known the heartbreak of that kind of rejection. Sometimes it takes time. And sometimes, no matter what we say or do, or don't say or do, people are going to be people. Sheep are going to be sheep. And people will sometimes prefer to remain harassed and helpless. And when that happens, Jesus has this final promise. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. In other words, when you and God have done your very best, sometimes you just have to let go, or as he said, shake the dust off your feet. Now, that doesn't mean that you give up on people. It just means that you have to keep on keeping on with your own walk of faith and not get discouraged or desperate. So, if you're feeling a call toward being a missionary to your own family, circle of friends, or colleagues, please remember that we are all sheep. Let them see your vulnerabilities. But make sure you put on the wolf's clothing that Christ gave to you. That spirit of self-differentiation and of confidence in God's never-ending care for you. Be the sheep in wolf's clothing as you point to the shepherd. And know that you are the one who endures to the end and will be saved. Amen. Our hymn of the day is hymn 798, Will You Come and Follow Me? Please stand as we sing.